We News has been brought to you in part by Flowerline and the NLCB.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. This is We News on Gayelle the channel. I'm Cindy F. Daniel. Minister of Planning, Social Restructuring and Gender Affairs, Mary King, painted a bleak picture of the country's economy this weekend. We spoke with Mrs. King about what Trinbago would look like if we did not have oil and gas at our disposal.
If we had no oil and gas tomorrow, I think we would all have to emigrate. We would be in a situation that would be worse than Haiti. If we are to be less dependent on oil and gas, then obviously we have to be doing things differently than we've been doing it in the past. I think we have to have a whole new focus, and we have to restructure our economy from where it is today. So we have to focus on developing those things that we now have, what some people will call the low-hanging fruit. And we have agriculture, and we have tourism, and we have great skills in education, in mathematics, and engineering, and medicine. So we have a whole lot range of stuff there that we should be focusing on at the moment. But we have to go further than that, because at some stage we may have no oil and gas. And that is where the Ministry of Planning, Social and Economic Restructuring comes into play.
The reality of the situation is that oil and gas are non-renewable resources, and TNT must find a way to expand our energy portfolio. Mrs. King spoke more about the government's plans to move TNT beyond our dependence on oil.
The government has already taken the decision that we are going to establish within Trinidad and Tobago's system a national innovation system. So we are going to focus on development of our skills, on developing a knowledge base, and therefore to do that, the government has set up an advisory and economic development board which is going to work with a council of ministers to bring about the establishment of this national innovation system. So we need to be able to get to a stage where our exports will at least be 50% of what we now earn from the energy sector. That is the beginning, that is the initial goal, the initial aim. We know in the long run that energy will be a small fraction or could be a small fraction of our earnings, and therefore we have to look ahead, far ahead, so that we get above the dependence on the energy sector. In order to do that, we have to do what other countries have done, like Brazil and India and Singapore, and focus on skills teaching, skills development, becoming knowledge-based, and using that knowledge to bring our peoples out of poverty and out of low-paying jobs.
Many workers around the world are still coming to terms with job cuts because of the continuing global recession. We News spoke today with Perry Eastman, manager at Eastman & Association, who provide human resource services, about helping people cope with unemployment.
Well, normally the first thing we recommend you do is not to panic when you've lost your job. A lot of people tend to panic, which will send them spiraling in a downward direction in terms of confidence. So what we ask you to do is don't panic. Watch your surroundings. Watch what's happening with the job market in your field. Okay? The next thing we recommend you do is do some house cleaning of yourself in terms of attitude. What we normally recommend is you do a psychometric test, which is a personality test, which we do here at Eastman & Associates, I'll let you know. Okay, and that psychometric test lets you know of yourself in terms of your strengths and weaknesses. So it gives you a good idea of how to go out there and sell yourself, especially in a hard job market as the world is today. Okay, another thing that we advise you do is look at your skills base in terms of your degrees and where you're, like where you're sound educationally, and maybe look to improve yourself or go into another field. So give yourself an option.
Mr. Eastman also spoke with us about how those within his organization help others to hone their entrepreneurship skills.
We normally recommend that you go into entrepreneurship after you've done some house cleaning, not just of your degree and stuff, but of your attitude and of your personal self. Then we normally say that, you could start looking at maybe going into, if you like, doing hairdressing, maybe doing something along those lines, opening a shop, a hair salon or something. So it's part of the guideline in keeping the person confident for the job market. You understand? So we normally do that after we tell them the best way for them to get a job. Then we also recommend ways for them to be independent in terms of getting of opening their own business or becoming an entrepreneur.
Now, although we're surrounded by water and have several rivers and natural pools, many Trinbagonians like myself can't actually swim, and drowning continues to be a major cause of death here. We spoke today to Gayelle Huggins, past president of the TNT Lifesaver Society, on why so few Trinis can swim.
I use people on the whole, but they're not wanting to learn to swim because of some fear that some people may have in swimming, or maybe they was in some sort of difficulties with respect to water-oriented, and they're afraid to use the water. But my best bet for that is that people should learn to swim, seeing that we are surrounded by a volume of water. We do have various programs throughout Trinidad and Tobago with various schools who are affiliated to the Trinidad and Tobago Life-Saving Society, which conduct classes at different venues, but they conduct some sort of life-saving courses there too.
Mr. Huggins also had a few tips for both swimmers and non-swimmers to follow to be safe at the beach, river, or waterfall.
Basically, some of the water tips that we normally will do is like, do not go alone, because if troubles occur, there may be no one to help. Always swim near to and in line with the shore. Supervise children at all times. If you are in trouble, stay calm, float on your back, wave one hand, shout for help. Do not use airbeds or inflated toys in the water. Do not mix alcohol and swimming. Have a good day, have fun, and be back home safe.
With human trafficking becoming more of a concern around the world, the Organization of American States and Trafficking in People have teamed up to host a seminar in Dominica for English-speaking Caribbean countries to help the fight against human trafficking.
Trafficking in persons, TIP, has been described as a modern-day form of slavery and a violation of basic human rights. It involves not only coercive sexual exploitation, but also forced labor, involuntary servitude, and child soldiers, among others. The Department of Public Security, DPS, of the Organization of American States, OAS, with the funding from the Canadian International Development Agency, CIDA, will be hosting a training program within the Caribbean for police, immigration officials, as well as prosecutors and judges. This training program will be in an attempt to increase awareness and support for law enforcement officials in the battle against human trafficking. The sixth installment of the program is scheduled to take place between July 13th and 14th, 2010 in Rousseau, Dominica. 3 weeks ago, many of the countries within the Caribbean region were enraged by the TIP report released by the United States Department of State, including Belize, the Dominican Republic, and Guyana. All of these countries voiced concerns over the manner in which the U.S. rated different countries, stating that the approach was unscientific and lacked transparency. This training program seeks to help attending countries combat the incidences of human trafficking within their region. To do so, the program, strengthening capacity of law enforcement officials, judges and prosecutors in the Caribbean to identify and combat trafficking in persons, especially women and children, led by the OAS anti-trafficking experts, will train law enforcement personnel in such areas as the distinction between trafficking and smuggling, crime scene management, victim identification, assistance and protection, and standard operating procedures for immigration protocol. The program is open to 13 English-speaking Caribbean countries, and the Department of Public Security expects to train at least 50 Dominican police officials, prosecutors, and judges in the 2-day training course. This has been Kimberly Martins for WE News.
We're taking a quick break, and when we come back, a panic button for Facebook. Stay with us.